Greetings, Pride and Providence. This is Leon, your ace and only reporter for Pride and Providence. Today is, I would say, a highlight of my short career in cable access showing, taping. Today I have Judge Caprio in studio today. Thank you for coming in.
Leon,
Your honor.
it's my pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you here. I have talked about you. I've seen you on, you are the epitome of what Pride in Providence is. And for me to have you on my show is an honor, your honor. So that being out of the way, let's talk about a few things about yourself. I know there's nobody around here who doesn't know who you are, but I usually start my show off by saying, people don't know you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you went to Hope High School. You taught there. You've been a judge. You've been a lawyer. Go back to some of those experiences and tell me about those.
It all started long before that.
Okay, tell me where it started.
People say, like, in your heart of hearts, how do you vision yourself?
Right.
Basically, when you boil me down, I'm just a kid from Federal Hill.
Okay.
Whose dad was born in Italy, who was raised in a cold water flat. His father was a fruit peddler, peddling fruit, and then got a job as a milkman, and just gave my older brother and I the inspiration that we had to stay in school, regardless of what.
Now, if I can, were you first generation over here, or was your father first generation
No,
over?
I'm first generation. My dad was emigrated from Italy to the United States.
Okay.
And so, basically, what I do on the bench is I do what my dad taught me to do, and my mom. So we were brought up in a very close-knit family. My dad would wake my older brother up and I at 4 o'clock in the morning and say, "You're coming to work with me on the milk truck."
Okay.
And we'd say, 4 o'clock, Dad. And we'd be working on the truck, and he'd say, "If you don't want to do this the rest of your life, stay in school."
Right.
So anyway, that was the impetus. But the loving care that we had in that neighborhood, it was a different world back then.
Yeah.
Providence was a different city back then. Providence back then consisted of many immigrants from Italy. Federal Hill consisted of many immigrants from Italy. In Fox Point, there was a large Portuguese population. In South Providence, there was a large Irish population.
Right.
And so that basically was the population of Providence back then. It's changed dramatically.
Right.
So it's a different world.
Well, being that you've seen that change, you started out as a little Providence as a little city, and you grew up with it. How were you able to roll, as they say, roll with it and continue to grow with the city and adapt and again use your judgment, like you said, from your mom and dad to help the city?
If there's one thing I can talk about, it's education.
Okay.
That was the springboard to everything that I've accomplished in my life.
Okay.
It was because of my dad's recommendation. But when it was time for me to go to college, we didn't have enough money, so I had to work 3 jobs.
And you went local.
And
right?
I went to Providence College.
Okay.
And when it came time to go to law school, which was my dream. I was going to go to Boston University School of Law, and I was accepted.
Okay.
But I didn't have the money to go. And so I then taught school at Hope High School.
Right.
Taught for a couple of years to try to earn enough money to get the down payment.
Okay.
And then continued teaching and drove back and forth to Boston nights and went to night school during that period of time.
So it's a good situation. If you have the tenacity and the goal, you can do it.
And you have the inspiration. I had the inspiration from my dad and from my mom, and I had the determination, and the perseverance to do that. It was as much of a physical challenge as it was a mental challenge back in those days. But I had a community spirit back then. My father always taught me that, you're going to be a leader someday in the community.
Okay.
And that sort of resonated with me. So while I was teaching and while I was in law school nights, I ran for the Providence City Council.
Okay.
And I ran against the president of the Providence City Council.
Did you win?
I won.
Okay.
I ran unendorsed. which was almost unheard of in those days.
Right. So you were at the celebration at City Hall, right, with all the former city council people. With,
I was.
Yeah,
Yes,
James.
I was.
Yeah, James.
Oh, yeah.
James was telling me about. Hi, James. We want to wave with that and say hi to James because if
My dear buddy, James.
Right, if it wasn't for James, you wouldn't be here anyway. So I owe him an arm and a leg.
I owe him a great deal as well.
Exactly. He's always he's one of the most generous people that I know, and one of the hard. I call him and Michael Correa Batman and Robin because you always see them in the city doing something, for the community.
James is what Providence is all about today.
Okay.
He was born and raised in Providence.
Right.
In South Providence.
Right.
Still lives in South Providence.
Right.
Right. But what did he do in the community? He gave to the community. He was a Little League coach.
Yeah.
I think he coached the...
the Jeremy Pena.
Jeremy
exactly.
Pena,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
yeah.
he never talks about things like that. But he gave back to the community. Then he became a fireman.
Right.
And distinguished himself. And then after that, now he ran for office and got elected. And he still continues just to give back to the community.
I always make a joke with him being James Taylor, associated with James Taylor today. And we always talk about how he's been through fire and rain and things like that with the song and things like that. So, and also, see, I coach Elmwood too. I've been a coach for 10, so that's our connection too. I've been coach. My Aaron and I've been coaching. We were coaching T-ball since for like 10 years now. So
really?
It's like, yeah. So, see, Elmwood. Hi, Elmwood.
What's the biggest thing in T-ball that's important?
Ooh, patience.
Patience?
Patience with the little ones.
Okay.
Yeah, patience with the little ones and patience with their parents.
Oh, okay. I can understand that.
But I mean, it's as watching them, sort of like soccer. It's like, the ball comes in, it's like they all go to it, and you're trying to no, and so it's a wonderful experience watching them learn and hearing them and some of them sometimes they talk like they're little adults. Like one year we had players out. We hadn't even played an inning. We had got out. This kid had the gloves, the cleats, the whole 9 yards, right? And we hadn't even pitched. He goes, "So when do we get a trophy?" Like, we haven't even played an inning and you want a trophy? So let's play a little game a little bit. So, that experience is like, with children and things like that is something you never get rid of. Then now, that being said, when you go into your, on the bench, because that's another story. Like I said, when I first moved to Providence, I got a traffic ticket and I had to stand before you. And as I had my 3 little ones, and you and I sort of got into a little, which is always a pleasure to watch your show, because you make the serious issues less threatening. Mm-hmm. You take the approach of like, let's take the logical approach to this situation. Let's take the emotion out of it. Let's look at the basics, and then you have a way of adding some levity to it. Mm-hmm. How do you get to that? How do you get to in your mindset take the fear of the court and make it hey, okay, you made a mistake. We're here to fix it. And move on.
That's a great question. So I'm going to ask you a question. You had three of your children with you?
Yeah.
And did they come up to the microphone with you?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
Did I ask them any questions?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Did I bring any of them up on the bench?
No, because you had one on the bench.
I did.
You had one. Yeah, you had a young man on the bench, and you were commenting on how the young man was checking out my oldest stepdaughter at the time.
Okay.
And you said something. We were going back and forth, and you said, "Well, I've got this one up here," and I said, "Well, I've got 3 to your 1," and you said, "Yeah, you're right. You win."
So when your children left the court,
yes, sir.
What was their impression of the judicial system?
I would have to say, honestly, at their age, probably.
Maybe I should ask it a different way.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I'm asking that question for this reason.
Okay.
It goes way back to when my father was just a young man, and my grandfather, who had come from Italy, was a fruit peddler, and he and his buddies, after peddling fruit one night, they all had a big bottle of wine,
right.
And they enjoyed the wine immensely. Right. And then they got into a little squabble, and my grandfather got arrested. Oh. And my grandmother's friends visited her and said, "You have to be in court tomorrow morning because your husband got arrested and he may go to jail."
Right.
So my grandmother goes around to all the fruit peddlers that night, and she says, I need money, because she didn't speak English, because my husband may go to jail tomorrow.
Right.
So they all give her money, and my father goes down to court as the interpreter.
Okay.
And they bring up my grandfather from the cell, and he's a little disheveled. He's been in the cell all night, you know. And he had a fight with his buddies the night before.
Right, right.
And as soon as they bring him in, my grandmother gets up, and she had this money. She had 3 dresses on because it was cold.
Yeah.
She reaches in, she takes the money out. My dad's sitting next to her, and she runs up to the judge, and she says, Judge, please, no jail. I got the money, right? And my father tells the story that he gets up, and the judge says, sit down, young man. And he says to my father, tell your mother that her husband is a good man, and that he had one bad night, and that I'm going to send him home to her to take care of her and your brothers and sisters. And I want her to cook him a good meal and take care of him, okay? And with that, my father tells my grandmother, and she starts crying, and she is so happy, right? For the rest of his life, my father told that story. Now, he was a young man at the time. Okay. My father told that story, and here's how he says, Frank, that great Irish judge with the white hair, he says, and the glasses, he says, what a man he was. And that was his impression of the judiciary, of how they treated people, how people should be treated. Right. And I often thought, my father told me that if that judge ever chastised my grandmother and yelled at my grandfather and whatever, his opinion of judiciary for life may have been different.
Right, right.
I never forgot that story. And I understand that sometimes the only impression that young people may have, or the only exposure that they may have to the judiciary, is when they come before my court. Right, right. And I try to make it as less intimidating as possible. Sometimes try to inject some humor into the festivities. And so at least I know this, that when your children left the courthouse, they didn't say, boy, we hate all judges. We hate the judiciary. No. But that's the theory. And I think that's how people should be treated.
Right. With common decency.
Those are exactly the words, common decency. I get letters from all over the world from people that send in, who have an opportunity to see us on social media. And they come from as far away as Middle East, Europe, all over the world. Right. And they all say the same thing, that they appreciate that we treat people with understanding, compassion, and integrity. Compassion, understanding, and integrity. And they talk about, in their jurisdictions, that's unheard of. Right. They're going to want their judges to watch your show as an example of how to be a good judge. So one of the things that we've done, of course, is that we've spread the gospel throughout the world, that in the United States, that judges are fair and that people are treated with respect. That one word, respecting, and also compassion, it's interesting, is in every correspondence. Now, my question to you is, being that, you come across that situation, you come across different walks of life, different personalities, from one person to another. It's almost like you're in customer service, for lack of a better situation. Right. So, how is it that, like you may have, you'll have 3 or 4 really good people that come up, and then, you got every once in a while, you get one of those hard-nosed, it's okay, Judge, I'm here, and it's like, even still, it's like, how do you set yourself up for like, okay, I know this guy's going to be a little bit difficult, but I can still get to him? I don't take it personal. How do you not take it personal? I don't take it personal because there is such a disproportion between the authority and the power of the sovereign and of the individual. And so, because I have that authority doesn't mean that I'm going to have to exercise it. Right. And so it's interesting, that's an interesting question, because it's been my experience that as tough as they come and as insulting as they sometimes can be, when I treat them with respect and understanding, they leave. Right. And they're a different person. Right. They're a different person. Well, that's the point. They come in, with that perception of, I got to be tougher than a judge, or I got to be rah, 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 and then it's like, they meet you, and it's like,
No, they have the total. Like you said, they come out with a different outlook or a different perception
Oh.
of the court system, and it's like, how do you, and I guess through your experience of many years, you learn to read people or understand them before they, get to you.
We disarm them with courtesy
Okay.
and respect, which they don't expect.
Right.
They expect me to be banging the gavel and saying, "How dare you? This is a court of law, and I'm going to do this." No, I'm not going to threaten anyone.
Well, and now do you find yourself influencing other judges, or it's like people say, hey, Judge Caprio, you got to watch him, or just like well, I was listening to Caprio today, and he gave me this opinion. I mean, do you get that other judges come and you say?
I've been invited to speak to other jurisdictions, judges in other jurisdictions. More recently, I was invited down to the state of Georgia.
Okay.
For their convention of their municipal court judges.
Okay.
And to address them.
Okay.
And I did, and addressed others throughout the country. So it's a badge of honor for me that they would ask me to do that. And it's interesting that even in this country, other jurisdictions would say, "Would you come and speak to our judges?" And the entire theme is, listen, exactly. There's such a disproportion between the power of the sovereign and of the individual, But treat people with decency and respect and understanding. It's the least we can do.
Right. Now, do you find in that swing being sort of like the ambassador for Providence? Because as I was talking to your son, it's like, he asked me about what's the theme of the show, and I'm like, well, if you don't live in Providence, you go out somewhere else, and somebody says, "So where you're from?" And you say, "I'm from Providence." They go, "Oh," it's like, no, it's not like that. You have to see it, from a different angle, and enjoy the city, and how, what pride does that give you? No pun intended in my show, but what pride does that give you when you're out other places and you explain to people what Providence is really like and the good things about Providence? I mean, every city has their issues, But
well, I think we've done that by example.
Okay.
I recently came back from a trip to Italy, to my father's birthplace, and I was stopped on the street in Rome and in area around Naples and Caserta from people I never knew who from other parts of the world saying, "Oh, we recognize you. You're the judge from Providence, Rhode Island." So I think that we have spread the word, internationally, that Providence College is a fair place, is a great place to live, with people are treated with respect and decency.
Now, we were talking. You touched lightly on education, which is a hot topic issue right now. You went to Hope High. You taught there. You went to PC. How was it your experience, and what would you say to upcoming students? Who want to go to school, and how do we, as a community, as a state, keep those students here? Keep our own. And rebuild instead of having them, flee off to other places. What you have seen, what might you be able to suggest to people listening on how we do that?
Yeah, that's the brain drain, that people that we educate, would leave, and I think that's part of government, and I think we have to give them the opportunity, whether it's through economic development to get them involved, to get people involved in housing, to get people involved in the community, to have people have a social conscience, instead of placing a dollar sign on everything and saying, okay, we're going to flee to New York or some other jurisdiction because the jobs are better. I think we have all of the resources right here. We need the, I'm not criticizing it.
Right, no.
But I think, we just need a strong commitment. We need a community and government commitment to make this place better, but to afford people opportunities. I mean, it's one thing to stay in school and then get your degree, and then you find out, like, what am I going to do with it?
Right.
So,
right. Well, and that being said, like as the educational system is developing and redeveloping itself, we're finding a lot of people, and we're saying it's like, you don't necessarily always have to go to college to get a good job. There are vocational schools, there are other avenues to go into. You being a college graduate, you had that experience, which is, for you, is what's a wonderful experience, which you like to talk about. But at the same time, can you see the educational system being an advantage for other ways of getting in, like through vocation or other avenues? How do you see that going?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, okay.
The educational system in and of itself is designed to advance people in life. I mean, that's basically what it's about. It's to give us the skills that we need in whatever discipline we're interested in, right?
Well, my question is in sense that, like, would you say that you don't necessarily always have to go to college?
Oh no.
That
Oh,
you,
oh,
you,
no,
you,
no.
you know, you know how,
In today's world, actually, there were so many opportunities in the trades.
Right.
I think people going into the trades, into plumber or carpentry or electricity, electrician, the opportunities are unbelievable today, and you can earn a pretty fair living doing that.
Right, right.
But I think we need a community and governmental commitment to help those people.
Okay.
We need programs to help them. We need role models for them. And I always have a saying that we have too many people that climb the ladder of success and forget about it.
Right.
It's not enough to climb the ladder of success.
Right.
It's enough, if you climb the ladder of success, to leave it down so that other people can follow and not pull the ladder up and say, good, I made it, forget everybody else.
Right. The crab mentality. If your crab's getting out, I'm going to grab you.
Right.
You're not getting out without me.
Exactly right.
Right.
So that's my feeling. But we're getting back to our original premise. Education is the key.
Right.
Education is the key. There's a whole bunch of other things, the family unit. I mean, the disintegration of the family unit may be the sin of this country today, but maintaining the family unit is so important.
When you were teaching, because my mother was a teacher, and it's like I used to watch her make the lesson plans and things like that. What did you enjoy about teaching?
I enjoyed the interaction with the youngsters.
Okay.
I did, and I was only 3 or 4 years older than most of the kids I was teaching.
Okay.
And it's interesting that the fact that I was going to law school nights, just inspired so many of them.
Okay.
And I would obviously talk to them a lot and tell them, listen, don't ever give up. It was very easy to say, well, I don't have the money, I can't go, and I'm going to give up. And it was terrible to use yourself as an example. I said, but I always wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't throw the towel in,
right.
So I'm going to find a way to do it. And I still talk to so many of them today, and they'll all have a story saying, we saw what you did, and in our discipline, we decided to do something just the same way.
Well, that's another interesting thing. How often do you run into students or, somebody says, I used to watch your show, and because I watched your show or I was in your class, I decided I was going to become a lawyer, and now I'm a judge or this, and it's all because of you.
Well, I can't take credit for everybody's success. I think I've had a few, but I've had multiple instances, where I was able to counsel young people.
Okay.
And they'd ask the same question, how did you do it? And always the same question, were you able to drive to Boston at night and get back, and how did you study? And that's a whole nother story.
Now, what's the path to 95? How would you get up there and back?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, I went to Suffolk Law School nights, and thank God for Suffolk, because they were the only university in Boston or close by that had a night law school at the time.
Okay.
So I was able to go to Suffolk, for whom I'm eternally grateful.
You want to wave to the people of Suffolk?
But I went in 1960, and there was no
Okay.
95. They were just building 95.
Okay.
And so the first leg of 95 was from Providence to Pawtucket.
Oh.
We said, oh, that was great.
Modernizing things, right?
And then my second year, it went all the way to Sharon, Mass. We said, wow, we can get halfway now on Route 95.
Right.
But then we still had some maneuver getting through Boston, so it was a 2-hour drive.
Wow. That determination to get there and back, and then with raising kids and then teaching.
Get back, then get back, and teach school the following morning.
And then raising kids too.
No, actually, I got married my senior year in law school.
Okay, so let's talk about the Caprio family, a little bit about that.
Well, I have 5 children.
Okay.
I have 2 that served in public life honorably and did great jobs. My son Frank,
Right.
who was in the state senate and
Yeah.
Rhode Island treasurer, and my son David, who was in the House, who was chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, generally recognized as a great legislator. He did a great job.
Right.
So I'm very proud of them. I have my son John, who is a businessman, who's done quite well for himself. I have a daughter, Marissa, who has 3 children. She's a great mom. And I have a son, Paul, my youngest boy, who just passed his real estate license.
Wow, okay.
So we got a great family. I'm proud of all of them. They've all done well.
Now, that being said, being a family man, how were you able to make that, as they say, time between going to law school, teaching, working and, you know, like, and then spending that time and making sure that your children knew who you were and that they were valued as a family?
Yeah. And the answer to that question is to always be there.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you a fast story.
Tell me fast.
My oldest son, Frank, was a pretty good baseball player.
Right.
You know, he was all-state at Bishop Hendricken. He was captain of the Harvard baseball team. So he was a pretty good baseball player. My son David, my second son, you know, played baseball for his junior high school team. He wasn't a great player, but he was good.
Right.
Okay. But I never missed a game for any of my kids. And my son David was playing baseball at Cardines Field in Newport.
Oh.
And
that's a drive.
I was trying a case before the Superior Court, and I wasn't able to get out, wasn't able to get out in time. So I went to see the judge in the middle of the trial and says, "Judge, I have to leave." And he says, "Where you go?" I told him, "I want to go see my son play baseball in Newport." He says, "You can't leave the trial." I convinced him. I rushed out to the car, traffic, I'm sweating. I get to the ballpark, I'm running across the street,
right.
up the stairs, get in the stands. It's like a movie. My son David's at bat. And I see him looking, because the parents are all over this way. I'm not there. I'm coming in this way to the stadium. And he hits a line drive to center field, the best hit he ever got in his life. One bounce off the wall, and he slides into second base, right? His helmet comes down, there's a cloud of dust. And by that time, I'm with the parents
Wow.
at the school, and I'm yelling, "Attaboy, David, attaboy." And he looks up, you know, dust,
right.
helmet over his neck. Right. He went like this. You know? I'll never forget that.
Right,
and I
right.
always thought, what would happen if I didn't make it?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure would it changed his life one way or the other, but it was just an experience in life that I'm sure
As a
he
dad.
remembers. And for me,
Yeah.
you know, just so my point is, you have to be there.
Right.
You know, you have to talk the talk and walk the walk. You just can't say, "Yeah, you know, I love my kids," but what do you do to love them?
Right.
You know, are
Right.
you there? Are you counseling them? Are you just sometimes putting your hand on their shoulder?
Are you only disciplining them when they're doing something wrong instead of also encouraging them?
Of course.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's you don't have to do great things. It's not money. You know, just making them know you love them and that you care, and that you care.
So now, going into our last part, you've got your sign that says voted. Now, there's this thing about you and these socks. Well, tell me about tell me about you and these socks. What's the deal with the socks?
Well, you know, I was on.
Not the Red Sox, because I'm a Yankees fan, but you'll excuse
I was
me
on the
that.
Wendy Williams program, and just prior to going on, they says, you know, don't forget the shoe cam. I didn't know anything about the shoe cam.
Oh yes, right.
And so they says, well, there's going to be a shoe cam. So I'm on, and they say, okay, the shoe cam, and they played the drum.
Right.
And they put the camera on my shoe. So I raised my leg, my pants. I raised my pants, and says, I am not identified by my shoes. I am by my socks. And I had some fancy socks on. And today I have on some socks that say I voted.
Well, we're gonna get a shot of your civic duties.
Today is election day.
Look at that! Look at the leg, ladies.
And there they are.
It's looking at sexy. That's looking sexy. I want to see that. Let's see. Let's pull it back there. Let's see the vote. There we go. That's sexy there. See, everybody? I voted. See? That's sexy right there. Go and do your civic duty. This is a man who's an example. Now, don't go in there showing your socks. Okay? That's not going to get you. That's not going to get you a card, right? You got to show your ID. Only you can show socks. So, all right. So now we're talking about, and today is the day to vote. By the time this is aired, this will be everybody will have voted, but. We were talking earlier about being an immigrant and immigration and things like that, and the vote being very important, exercising your civic duty. And